Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Chicago, a summer afternoon. The sun bathed the crowded streets, cars honked softly, and passers-by strolled between stores. Monica Johnson, 8 months pregnant, walked slowly to her car after a doctor's appointment. She held her keys tightly, and her beige coat billowed lightly behind her. Her rounded belly was a testament to the life she carried with pride and hope. As she was about to open her car, a white police officer, Officer Daniel Harris, suddenly appeared. Without a word of politeness, he shoved her against the door, his eyes filled with cold arrogance. "You can't stand here." "Show me your ID," he ordered, his tone accusing and threatening. Monica raised her hands, scared but calm. "I just came from my doctor's appointment. I'm on the sidewalk, I'm not bothering anyone." Harris didn't listen. In a brutal and inexplicable gesture, he violently shoved her. Monica fell to the ground, gasping for air, her hands instinctively protecting her stomach. Shocked bystanders began filming the scene with their phones, some shouting for the officer to stop. In the crowd, her husband, Marcus Johnson, came running. He had received a message from Monica a few minutes earlier, informing him that she was returning from her appointment. A police officer himself and respected for his integrity, Marcus saw his wife lying on the ground, trembling and scared. His blood boiled. He clenched his fists, his heart pounding. Faced with this injustice, he knew he couldn't just stand by and watch. But he had to think fast. Every second counted to protect Monica, and the child she was carrying. Marcus Johnson ran down the street at full speed. His boots pounded the pavement as he saw Monica, his wife, sprawled on the ground, her eyes filled with fear and pain. The rounded belly he had cherished for months seemed fragile under the weight of the brutality she had just endured. "Sir! Back off! She's pregnant!" Marcus shouted, his voice echoing through the crowded street. Officer Daniel Harris, arrogant and self-assured, ignored the warning. He reached out to handcuff Monica, claiming she was resisting his control. Bystanders began to approach, some filming the scene with their phones, others shouting for the officer to stop. The atmosphere was electric, with each second increasing the tension. Marcus stepped in, placing his body between Harris and Monica. His heart was pounding, a mixture of fear, anger, and protectiveness. "You're not going to touch her. She didn't do anything," he yelled, rage in his voice. Harris, contemptuously, pushed him away violently. "Step aside, officer. This is none of your business." But Marcus, trained and disciplined, didn't back down. Instinctively, he landed a precise punch on Harris's shoulder. The shock was enough to unsettle him for a few seconds, and those seconds were crucial. Passers-by began to applaud and shout their support for Marcus. Some shouted, "Well done. Defend her," while others, more cautious, recorded everything, aware that each image could bear witness to injustice. Monica, still on the ground, looked at Marcus with eyes filled with gratitude and fear. "Marcus, be careful," she whispered, her voice trembling but resolute. Marcus, out of breath, answered him. "I will never leave you alone. Never. No matter what he does, I'm here." The confrontation had only just begun, and no one yet knew how far it would lead. But one thing was clear: that day, the streets of Chicago would become the scene of a fight for justice, dignity, and the protection of innocent life. The crowd around them had grown. Phones were filming the scene from every angle. Marcus's face was fixed and determined. Harris, flushed with anger and frustration, was pointing at Monica as if she were guilty of some unthinkable crime. "You don't understand. She can't be here," Harris yelled, completely ignoring Monica's pregnancy and Marcus's presence. Marcus, his gaze dark, moved forward again. "You're supposed to protect us, not attack us. Back off, or you'll have to deal with me." Harris sneered contemptuously. In an unpredictable and violent gesture, he tried to grab Monica and force her to her feet. It was then that Marcus, reacting on instinct, placed his hands on the officer's shoulders and pushed him back. Harris lost his balance, but quickly recovered, rage etched on his face. "You'll regret this, officer." Harris spat. Marcus didn't respond with words. He simply stood between Monica and Harris, ready to do anything to protect her. His eyes burned with unwavering determination. Bystanders murmured, some applauding his bravery, others frightened by the turn of events. Suddenly, a sharp blow came from Marcus to Harris's shoulder, and Harris staggered, surprised by Marcus's strength and precision. Time seemed to stand still for a few seconds. The entire scene was being recorded by several spectators. Every movement, every look, every gesture would soon be shared on social media. Monica, still on the ground, trembling, whispered, "Marcus, please don't get hurt." Marcus, breathing quickly but his voice firm, replied, "I'm a police officer, Monica. I know how to defend myself. But I'll never let anyone hurt you." The tension on the street was palpable. Sirens could be heard in the distance. Reinforcement was approaching, but no one yet knew who would control this confrontation. On that day, a simple Chicago street became the scene of a confrontation that would leave its mark and shake the entire community. Just minutes after the clash, videos shot by bystanders began circulating on social media. On Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, the hashtag #JusticeForMonica appeared everywhere. The footage showed Harris hitting a pregnant woman for no reason, and Marcus bravely putting himself between them. The notifications on Marcus's phone kept flooding in. Colleagues, friends, and even strangers were sending messages of support. But some of the comments were hateful, accusing Marcus of assaulting an officer. The man felt a lump form in his throat. This was going far beyond what he had imagined. Monica, still trembling, squeezed her husband's hand. "Marcus, do you think we'll make it?" she asked, her voice weak. "Yes, we have the witnesses, the video, everything will be visible. He can't lie about that," Marcus replied, trying to reassure his wife while hiding his own fear. Police reinforcements finally arrived. Harris tried to play the victim card, claiming he had been attacked by a colleague. But there were numerous witnesses and the videos were irrefutable. The crowd around them began to shout, "Injustice! Justice!" A local reporter, drawn by the scene and the screams, rushed to film and interview Marcus and Monica. The footage was broadcast on local and then national television. Pressure on the police department quickly mounted. The police chief was forced to respond publicly, announcing Harris's immediate suspension pending the investigation. Marcus felt a strange mixture of relief, anger, and worry. He knew this was just the beginning. The incident would shake the community, and he was prepared to face every consequence to protect his family. Monica placed her hand on her stomach. "Thank you, for standing up for me, and for standing up for our baby." Marcus, hugging her, whispered, "I will always do anything for you, and for her. No one will hurt you with impunity." The Chicago street, witness to this tragedy, had just become the starting point of a much larger fight against injustice and violence. The next morning, Monica and Marcus's story was already making headlines in local newspapers. Television stations broadcast the videos on repeat, analyzing every second of the incident. The headlines were unequivocal. Pregnant woman beaten by police officer in Chicago. The husband, a police officer himself, reacts and defends his wife. Social media was exploding. National journalists contacted Marcus and Monica, eager to hear their stories. Civil rights and pregnancy advocacy groups immediately shared the footage, denouncing the brutality and systemic racism. In their living room, Monica and Marcus watched the news reports, still in shock. "I can't believe the whole country is seeing this. It's like a waking nightmare," Monica said, her voice trembling. Marcus put his hand on her shoulder. "I know. But now everyone knows the truth. And the truth can change things." The public response was overwhelming. Hundreds of messages of support poured in, some even from respected police officers, praising Marcus's courage. But the situation was not without danger. Harris had allies in the department, and some officers supported him, saying he had reacted appropriately. Despite the tension, Marcus and Monica decided to speak to the press. At an impromptu press conference outside their neighborhood, Marcus spoke. "My wife didn't do anything. She was just walking down the sidewalk. But today, we're here to show that no one, regardless of their position or skin color, can be attacked with impunity. We hope this incident will raise awareness." Monica, supporting her husband, added, "I'm pregnant. And yet, I was beaten as if my life had no value. But thanks to Marcus, we're still here, and we want justice." Marcus and Monica's images and words were picked up by all media outlets. In less than 24 hours, their story went viral, reaching millions of people across the United States. The police department was forced to respond publicly, promising a swift and transparent investigation into the incident. This chapter of their lives, which had begun in fear and violence, now became a symbol of resistance and courage in the face of injustice. In Chicago, Monica and Marcus's story had struck a nerve in the community. The normally quiet neighborhood where they lived became a site of spontaneous gatherings. Neighbors, friends, and even strangers gathered in front of the Johnsons' house to offer their support. Signs appeared everywhere. "Stop police violence. Justice poor Monica. Let's protect our families." Local activist groups organized peaceful marches, carrying banners and chanting for justice and reform. Marcus and Monica were invited to speak. In the neighborhood Central Park, in front of several hundred people, Marcus stood on a makeshift stage. "We are not seeking violence, but justice. My wife did nothing wrong, and she does not deserve to go through what she went through. We must support each other, protect our families and our communities." The crowd applauded, some wiping away tears of emotion. Monica, standing next to him, spoke. "I'm pregnant. I was scared for my life and my babies. But thanks to Marcus and all of you, I feel like we can turn things around. We are not alone." Local media outlets were present and broadcasting the images live. The mobilization quickly gained momentum. Messages of solidarity arrived from all over the country. Civil rights organizations, pregnant women's organizations, and racial minority organizations contacted Marcus and Monica for legal and media support. At the same time, citizens began organizing fundraisers to help the Johnson family cover legal and medical expenses. Community initiatives were launched to raise awareness about police brutality and systemic racism. Marcus, seeing this wave of solidarity, felt a mixture of emotion and responsibility. He knew that their personal struggle was now part of a larger movement, capable of influencing change. "We are not just fighting for ourselves," he murmurs to Monica, "but for all the families who have no one to protect them." That day, the Chicago community showed its strength and unity, and Marcus and Monica understood that they were not alone in their quest for justice. The day after the protest, the Chicago Police Department officially announced an investigation into the incident. Officer Daniel Harris was immediately suspended, while Marcus and Monica were invited to testify before an internal committee. The police chief's office was filled with tension. Files were piling up, and footage from now viral amateur videos was projected on a large screen. Harris's every move, Marcus's and Monica's every gesture, was analyzed in minute detail. "We must treat this matter with the utmost seriousness," declared the police chief in front of his deputies. "The video is clear and the audience is demanding answers." Marcus, for his part, found himself in a paradoxical situation. A respected officer for over 10 years, he knew that defending his wife could put him in difficulty, even with the evidence in his favor. He spent hours with his lawyer, reviewing the footage, preparing his testimony, and recalling every detail of the attack. Monica, still fragile after the assault, was examined by doctors to ensure that her pregnancy had not been compromised. Fortunately, the child was fine, but doctors confirmed that stress and trauma could take their toll. Tensions rose as Harris attempted to present his version of events, claiming that he had been attacked by Marcus and that Monica had resisted voluntarily. But the testimony of bystanders and the clarity of the videos contradicted his story at every point. Social media amplified each development. Civil rights experts commented on every detail of the investigation, and local groups called for Harris to be brought to justice for his actions. Marcus and Monica, though under pressure, received growing support from the community and the media. "We have the proof. We have the truth on our side," Marcus said to Monica one evening, sitting at their kitchen table, his face tired but determined. No matter what he tries to say, he won't be able to undo what he did. Monica placed her hand on his, comforting him. "And no matter how long it takes, Marcus, we will see justice." This investigation wasn't just a formality. It represented a test for the police department and the entire city. Would they acknowledge brutality and injustice, or protect one of their own at the expense of the truth? A few days after the incident, Monica and Marcus's story spread beyond Chicago. The videos were shared all over social media, accompanied by hashtags like #JusticeForMonica, #StopPoliceBrutality, and #ProtectPregnantWomen. National television networks picked up the story, and live debates took place on CNN, NBC, and ABC. Commentators denounced Harris's gratuitous violence and praised Marcus's courage. American newspapers ran the headlines. "Pregnant woman beaten by police officer, America in shock." "The police officer husband defends his wife, courage and justice." Civil rights groups, pregnant women's groups, and racial minority groups issued official statements calling for Harris's permanent suspension and police reform. Even celebrities and influencers took to social media to express their support for Monica and Marcus, further amplifying the case's impact. At home, Marcus and Monica watched the news reports. Monica, still shaken, squeezed her husband's hand. "I didn't think the whole country was going to see this. It's huge." "Yes, but that's exactly what we needed." "Let the world see the truth," Marcus replied, his voice firm but full of fatigue. The Chicago Police Department was under unprecedented pressure. The police chief held a press conference to try to calm public opinion. He announced that Harris would remain suspended, that the internal investigation would be conducted transparently, and that a complete review of use of force protocols would be conducted. Despite this official announcement, public anger and solidarity continued to grow. Peaceful demonstrations took place in several cities across the United States, with hundreds of people holding signs and chanting, "Justice for Monica. Stop police violence." Marcus understood that their struggle was no longer just personal. They had become symbols, representing all victims of police violence and all vulnerable women. But with this exposure also came the weight of criticism and threats. Every day, they had to navigate the ever-increasing pressure of protecting their families and the media. "We have to hold on, Monica," Marcus whispered that evening, sitting next to his wife. "What we do is bigger than us." Monica nodded, hand on her stomach. "For our baby, and for all those who have no one to protect them." That day, Marcus and Monica realized that their courage had sent shockwaves through the nation, and that the fight for justice was only just beginning. A few weeks after the incident, Marcus and Monica decided to turn their experience into a concrete fight for justice. With the support of the community and several civil rights organizations, they organized a public lecture at their local cultural center. In front of several hundred people, Marcus spoke. "We don't want our story to be limited to a news story. What we experienced could happen to anyone. It's time to protect our families, our wives, and our children. We must act." Monica, moved but determined, continued. "I'm pregnant. I could have lost my life or my babies that day. If our story can save just one person, then we must share it." The conference marked the beginning of a larger movement. Together, they created the Foundation Monica and Marcus Johnson, dedicated to protecting pregnant women, raising awareness against police violence, and promoting racial justice. The foundation organized educational workshops, awareness campaigns, and legal support programs for victims of violence. Word spread quickly. Communities across the United States organized their own events using the foundation's model. Fundraisers were launched to fund legal protection and support programs. Marcus and Monica were invited to speak at schools, universities, and civil rights forums. Despite the media attention and pressure, Marcus remained true to his mission, to protect his family while standing up for others. He once told Monica during a volunteer meeting, "This isn't just our fight anymore. It's the fight of thousands of families who have no one to protect them. And together, we can make a difference." Monica, with a proud and determined look, added, "Every action matters. Every voice matters. We cannot remain silent in the face of injustice." The movement grew every day. The media continued to follow their actions, and the community felt inspired by this couple who had transformed a personal tragedy into a force for change and hope. For Marcus and Monica, fear and trauma gave way to a new energy, one of struggle and hope. Their story was no longer just a local affair, but the beginning of a social revolution, driven by courage, justice, and determination. A few months after the incident, Officer Daniel Harris's trial finally began. The tension in the courtroom was palpable. National journalists, civil rights groups, and citizens from across the country filled the stands. Marcus and Monica were there, holding hands, living symbols of courage and resilience. Harris, sitting on the stand, tried to minimize his actions, claiming that he had simply exercised his authority and that Marcus had assaulted him. But every piece of evidence, videos, bystander testimony, and medical experts, clearly demonstrated the violence and injustice Monica had suffered. The prosecutor laid out the facts precisely, emphasizing Harris's arrogance and brutality. He attacked a pregnant woman for no reason and put her in danger. The law does not allow violence, especially against a vulnerable person. He must answer for his actions. Marcus, questioned on the stand, remained calm and precise. He recounted every detail, explaining how he had acted solely to protect his wife and their unborn child. His testimony, imbued with sincerity and dignity, deeply moved the courtroom. Monica, too, testified. "I was afraid for my life and my babies. But Marcus was there. Without him, I might not be here today. We demand justice, not just for ourselves, but for all women and families who have experienced violence." The national media followed every step of the trial. Television networks broadcast live, and social media amplified the couple's voice. Public support was overwhelming, increasing pressure on the police department and the judicial system. After several days of debates and hearings, the verdict was delivered. Harris was convicted of assault and endangering a pregnant woman. He was permanently suspended and sentenced to community service, accompanied by a symbolic prison sentence. The community applauded the verdict, and Marcus and Monica felt immense relief. But their fight didn't end there. Through their foundation and national visibility, they continued to advocate for police reform and the protection of women and families. "We won a battle," said Marcus, shaking his wife's hand, "but the real fight for justice continues." Monica, her eyes bright but filled with determination, added, "Every woman, every family deserves to live without fear. And we will never stop fighting for that." The couple became a national symbol of courage, dignity, and justice, showing that even in the face of violence and injustice, determination and love could triumph. A few weeks after the trial, Monica gave birth to a baby girl, Lila Johnson, in a Chicago hospital. The room was bathed in light, and despite the scars left by the incident, a sense of peace and happiness filled the air. Marcus, sitting by the bed, gently squeezed his wife's hand as he looked at their baby. "Look at her, our little miracle," he whispered, his eyes shining. Monica smiled weakly, her heart filled with gratitude. "She's perfect, thanks to you, Marcus. Thanks to you, we held on." Lila's birth symbolized a victory over fear, violence, and injustice. But it also represented the beginning of a new phase, transforming their experience into a lasting legacy for the community. Their foundation grew even larger, reaching thousands of families, organizing violence prevention workshops, and educational programs for youth and police officers. The Johnson family became a national symbol of hope. The media reported not only on the incident, but also on how Marcus and Monica had transformed fear and injustice into strength and positive action. Cities across the country began to model their own protection and awareness initiatives. One evening, while they were walking with Lila in their neighborhood park, Marcus looked at Monica. "Do you realize? Everything that happened, all the trials, it created something bigger than us. Monica, holding their daughter against her, replied. Yes, and we must continue. For Lila, for all the families, for those who have no one to protect them. Our fight has only just begun. The sun was setting over Chicago, illuminating the smiling faces of neighbors and children playing in the park. Marcus and Monica knew they had survived fear and injustice, but more importantly, they had planted a seed of hope and change in their community and beyond. Thus ended a painful chapter in their lives, but the real journey, one of justice, love, and protection of the most vulnerable, was only just beginning.